Today what we'd like to do is move forward and try to present to you some data that I think you will find interesting. Data regarding what are the academic plans for this new university. We talked about a lot about Georgia Regents University and the growth of the university and so on. But really the university is about education and about academic programs, and so now we are going to hear both from Gretchen Caughman, who is Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost for GHSU, and Carol Rychly, who's our Vice President for Academic Affairs at ASU, about what the plans for academia and educational programs are going to be moving forward. I think you're going to find this very interesting. Okay, hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end for questions, and we're happy to answer any of those questions that we can. But today I think you'll find this very interesting. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Dr. Aziz. We are going to do what we've learned to do very well in the last few months, I think, which is tag team. So Carol and I have enjoyed this adventure so far, and we and you, many of you in the audience, have worked diligently so far on what you'll see today. Understand that it is a work in progress. We have lots more to do, lots more engagement, but we did think it was appropriate to give you a feel for where we in the leadership, along with some of the key stakeholders, feel we have opportunities and challenges in the academic future that we intend to build together.
It's kind of fun to be at the place. We've been doing this consolidation thing for quite a number of months now, and I think we're at a place now where we actually have learned enough to be able to share something with you in terms of where we're headed, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. In the beginning, we're looking at the two institutions and where we currently are, and you'll notice some data we have. While it's true Augusta State was established in 1925, it does trace its roots back to the 1700s. But if looking at the two entities that are coming together to merge to form the new university, we have somewhat different histories and somewhat different missions historically. Augusta State has 4 colleges now, Georgia Health Sciences 5. You have many more certificate and degree programs than we do because our mission was very different at the time when we were Augusta State University than it will be in the new university. We have many more students, about twice as many at Augusta State as you have here at Georgia Health Sciences, but almost in a reverse mix. The bulk of our students are undergraduates, where obviously the bulk of your students are graduates. So it's a kind of nice blending together that we can have complementary, we think. Our graduation rate is lower than we would like to be. Your graduation rate, because they've already been field tested in undergraduate programs, is very high. You see, we've converted a large number of degrees, which means we've put out into the community and into the state well-educated Georgians. And you have, again, looking at it in terms of size, Augusta State is much smaller in terms of faculty, staff, and also budgets than is the Georgia Health Science, half of the consolidation group. When we start our new exciting university in January, what we will have then is a combination of the colleges. So we'll have 9 viable colleges providing a range of programs. We'll have more than 9,500 students, which makes us small as a comprehensive university, but a size to be reckoned with. Nearly 1,500 faculty and 1,100 employees. 11,000 employees, and more important than that, a large budget that makes a big impact in our local community.
So as you'll recall, many of you, one of the first charges that the Chancellor gave each of the consolidation pairs when that action came forth, that in fact there would be 8 institutions of the system that would go to 4, was to use that as an opportunity to craft a mission statement for the new university that would be emblematic of what we would be at consolidation. It's not necessarily going to reflect the mission 20 years from now, although it certainly could, but at least what we would see ourselves as the primary mission during this very formative period. And so through an engagement process and with the leadership, this mission, which you all probably already remember, and I won't read it all to you here, was crafted and subsequently approved by the Board of Regents. So this is Georgia Regents University mission statement. And as you can see through scanning it, it is a very broad and deep mission. We are going to do much, and it does, I believe, reflect the unique position that we have in the university system and opportunities there too. Along with that, we also crafted a vision for the university, which you see here, which encapsulates, again, what we aspire to be, and that's a top-tier university and a destination of choice for education, healthcare, discovery, creativity, and innovation. You'll hear more about many of these different parameters as we roll out further planning, but today what we wanted to focus on was that destination of choice for education, recognizing that it's inextricably linked with the others, but we do want to talk about and focus on where we believe academic programming can go and how we're going to get there in the context of this new university. I want to talk first about some, and I want to emphasize it's a very minimal set of the great things that the two institutions will bring to that day one university. We have many strengths that we should be proud of. We decided not to go into some of the more granular ones because inevitably there are things that is each person's favorite great thing that won't get mentioned in a list like this, but some of these that we would talk about are designated here. We are a military-friendly university, and note, we're not really talking about which component of the consolidation pair will bring this, because again, we will be one, and we want to start seeing ourselves as a seamless institution in that way. We have a very military-friendly university, and we have a goal to become more so, to even better serve the military, the active duty, their families, and the veterans in our region and beyond. We are a healthcare destination for education. In some cases, we are, in fact, the destination for certain programs already, such as dentistry in the state of Georgia, as far as public education and private, in this instance, for dentistry is concerned, but we want to grow that even further. We have colleges that are best aligned to serve students, and we continue to keep that in mind as we design future plans. We have innovative instructional technology on some fronts, and again, want to grow that even further. We do lead in certain disciplines for mobile applications, and online education is, again, a strength that we intend to go even further with. One of the things that we bring that is very important in thinking about the strengths of a university is the strong full-time faculty presence relative to our student body, our student equivalents. And that is important. We have a very great, robust part-time faculty who contribute in many ways, but again, one of the ways in which universities are measured is the component of education that's delivered by a full-time core of instruction, and we would rank very well in that regard. We have internationally renowned faculty, as many of you are well aware. There are notable interdisciplinary collaborations already, and we feel, again, that one of the unique aspects of this consolidation is our potential to have even more of those in ways that weren't possible before. I think everybody's aware of our NCAA championship and contender athletic teams that are on the rise even further, and hope to grow those out and also be proud of the legacy that they bring to the institution. Phi Kappa Phi, which is one of the major national honor societies, academic honor societies, has a national chapter of excellence in Augusta State's chapter, which is an old and very esteemed chapter. Probably the newest chapter for Phi Kappa Phi was established at Georgia Health Sciences University just a couple of months ago. And so together we have an excellent opportunity to continue to build and have a focus of academic excellence through that work. There's an outstanding literacy center associated with the institution that we want to continue to support and grow. National and regional support has been very good for STEM, and in this case I mean undergraduate STEM, that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education and research. And we want to, again, grow that potential even further. And then we are engaged currently in some and intend to have more global collaborations in education and research as well.
So Gretchen set the stage of kind of where we are currently and some of the strengths that we focus on and that we're very proud of as a combined institution. But because we're in a growth mode now, there are many challenges ahead, and we want to keep those in mind as we move forward so that we can deal with them strategically. So the rest of the time we're with you this afternoon, we're going to talk about what some of those challenges are. And we see them in sort of these buckets. Issues of student enrollment, also student success, looking at the array of programs that we offer that needs to grow, obviously, as we grow as an institution and type of institution. Both enrollment and programmatic changes have implications for faculty size. We also need to continue to work on faculty development, not only to be the best that we can be, but to kind of fit our newest mission. And all these have implications for facilities. I think one of our big challenges is coming up with a sense of who we as GRU are, building a culture. We think we have very different cultures on the two campuses, and we need to be identifying and moving into a culture that feels like a good place for all of us to be. And then, of course, the economic challenges of undertaking this big kind of an undertaking. So let's look at the first one we talked about, which is enrollment. And the scale on these has been adjusted to show to make the changes seem more dramatic than they are and to show the actual trend. But the number does not at 0, so those of us who know statistics know this is a little bit of a misleading graph. But the basic idea there is we're looking at enrollment at the two institutions from the year 2007 to the current time. And you'll see that in the first 3 years, both of us were on an enrollment growth model. Very exciting, very energetic, very fun place to be from 7 to 9. And then in 2010, both of us had a bit of a drop-off because of the economy and everything that was happening there. What's happened since then is that GSHU has done a better job of recovering and starting to show a little bit of growth, whereas ASU has continued to have problems with getting back to where we were before. So we've seen a slight decline in enrollment in the past 3 years, and obviously this is a concern to us and is one of the challenges that we're going to face as we move forward into the new being of who we are.
And one thing I'd just add for this audience, neglected to do that at the noon, just for those of you who are very familiar with Georgia Health Sciences University's educational platform, part of the drop incorporated there from 09 to 10 was the consortium agreement going to for the Doctor of Physical Therapy. Recall that we began that with the intent for Albany State and Armstrong Atlantic, that we would transition after we got those programs up, that they would transition to those institutions to help further their programmatic array. So that was part of the reason that those went.
One of the things that I also want to add about enrollment for this fall is that we have turned the corner in terms of we have a large increase in new freshmen, 11% at Augusta State University, and also an increase in the number of transfer students of about 4%. So what we're really seeing at ASU is not that we're not bringing more people in, that they're not excited about coming, but we're not able to keep them. So these are some of the issues that we'll be looking at.
We think that's a great harbinger of the interest that will come in the new admissions with the new university. So, in terms of how we'll get there, we are going to do some things that we have done. We're going to keep on doing some of the good things and the strengths that we have, but we're also going to be more aggressive in a couple of fronts. One of the things, if you look inside the enrollment profiles of Augusta State University, you will find that a large majority, about 80%, of the students come from a 50-mile radius of this site. And that's great. We don't want to turn our back in any way on the local community. We want, in fact, to be even more welcoming and provide more services to them. But clearly, we need to go further. We need to think more broadly about attracting other students from the rest of the state of Georgia into South Carolina, even beyond, in order to be that truly realized destination of choice. And so to do that, we're going to have some aggressive student recruitment and marketing strategies. We are going to go out in markets that we have not particularly been in before. We're going to get those students' interest, and then we have to deliver when they arrive and are interested and are at least giving us a look, because parents and students want a certain quality of life on a student residential kind of campus atmosphere, and that's what we really will need to begin to create. And as you know, part of our facilities challenges will be how to make that happen. Another thing that we want to do is to build programs around our unique strengths. We are committed to being a broad, encompassing university, but we are going to leverage our primary strength, particularly in the early years, and that is health sciences and biomedical science education. That is where we spike, as you'll see when we get into the academic program array. Clearly, that's our strength. Similarly to how Georgia Tech is known as its engineering programs, that's not the only thing it has. That's not the only reason to go to that institution. But if students really are committed to going for engineering in a quality way, that's where they think of first. We want to be that destination for healthcare professions and biomedical science from day one, from the freshman experience, that students believe this is where they can come and have a continuum experience that will position them best to succeed in those professions. Now, as you know, many students come into college thinking they're going to be a physician, they're going to be a nurse, they're going to be a physical therapist, whatnot, and then they sort of get into things like organic chemistry or calculus and think, maybe something else will do a little better. Great, we're going to have a lot to offer them on other fronts as well, but the point is they are thinking of us and they're here, and we can deliver both on that as well as on this broader platform. So we're going to be thinking about things like early acceptance, early assurance programs where high-performing students, really high-performing students who can demonstrate that coming in and maintain it throughout, will be assured that they will have a place in some of these health sciences programs. We can do that across the board. We can do that in other ways that would get pipeline enrollment established and again be a draw. And if one person's coming, maybe his or her friends will get the idea that this is a good place too. So we'll grow that reputation and the experiences there. We're going to increase the pre-health professional concentrations in that way, and we're also going to do something we were trying to establish even as sister institutions about 3 miles apart in terms of some dual degree programs, but it will be so much easier to do now that we are one, because the issues with having students who are either jointly enrolled into different institutions for degrees, such as an MBA and an MD or DMD or whatever, are many. Student financial aid is very problematic. They have to disenroll from one to enroll in another and go back and so forth. That all disappears now that we are one institution. And so we believe that there will be significant benefit to students who are enrolled in some of these programs and want more. They want a broader experience and educational base for their careers. In terms of exactly what we're projecting, and you know, projections are just that. We can draw lines and have them be anything and put numbers up. But what we've done with, we think, a fair bit of intention and planning is to project what we believe enrollment could look like if we are successful on these various fronts by the fall of 19. So we're looking at fiscal year 2020 and where we would be. You will note, if you look at the graph, what you see here is our actual combined, the green is the actual combined enrollment currently, and then branching off of that, 3 scenarios that we would call high, medium, low. They're actually not very different from each other, and they're pretty conservative when you get down to it, because if you note what they are, they get us to close to 12,000, maybe not even quite by that time, and that means a 24%, 19, or 14% increase respectively. They also, you'll note, some of them actually project that we may take a little bit of a dip in enrollment. We don't want to do that. We intend to do everything we can to prevent such a dip, but it is possible that early out of the gate, it may take a little while to build momentum, but we believe that we certainly can. One of the things that makes us optimistic about that possibility is the fact that if you chart this against, and it's a different axis, this axis over here, for this purple line, this is the projections of Georgia high school graduates over that same period. And what that tells us is that it actually mirrors very nicely with a 28%, in fact, increase, what we believe we can capture. So we don't actually even need to get a significantly greater market share of the current sort of pool, even though we plan to do that as well. But if we can continue to grow those new greater numbers of high school graduates, this would feed our enrollment. We think that even based on history, if we look at some of the kinds of institutions that have undergone similar consolidations, even though nobody's exactly like we are, of course, but if you look at 3 others that have happened in recent history and see what their perspective on enrollment growth has been. What you'll see is that, in fact, we are indeed in the right time. Now, of course, at least two of them were in very different economic situations and whatnot, but what you see here is the University of Alabama at Birmingham in the 70s, and then University of Colorado earlier in the 2000s, and the University of Toledo. And if you look at their first 5 years following consolidation, you can see the kind of enrollment growth, total enrollment growth, that each of those institutions enjoyed. So we believe, again, that our projections can be quite realistic if we all get it together and make it happen.
Good. Can you go back to that previous slide?
Yes.
I did want to show you in that slide, if you look at fall 12, you'll see that the state enrollment was projected to be down a bit from last year, which is exactly what we're seeing at Augusta State, and it's also what we're seeing across the system. So the people who are doing this modeling, it appears to be that they know what they're talking about, and it's encouraging for us, I think, as we try to grow, to feel that there is definitely room for us to grow within the growing market. It's one thing to get the students in the door and have them enrolled, and it's another challenge to have them be successful here. And one of the measures, not the only one, but certainly a measure of success for students is having them actually graduate. If you look at this data, this is based on 2005, which seems like a long time ago, but that's because we look at 6-year graduation rates, 1.5 times the 4-year as the standard measure for graduation. And this is not something that I think as Augusta State would be particularly proud to have out there. Our graduation rate is not what we would like it to be. Only less than 8% of our students graduate within 4 years, and there are lots of reasons for that, but only less than 28% meet the 6-year graduation mark. And we've divided that out to look that there is a cohort of students called the university college students. This is the group of students who do not meet the current standards to be admitted to Augusta State University, but because there is no local junior college in the area, we have been trying to serve that function, and that graduation rate is even lower at less than 1% and then 11% after 6 years. So this is something that Augusta State on its own had begun to look at and show some concern for, and then pops in Complete College Georgia, and it was like the best gift we could have because it came at exactly the time that we were interested in moving those very initiatives that Complete College Georgia is interested in. It comes out of the Complete College America program, national program, where states are looking at what they can be doing within their state systems to help more students complete some level of college, a certificate, an associate or a bachelor's degree, or beyond that. And it was, I think, in March that we, for the first time, went to a meeting in Athens with a group of colleagues from both ASU and GSHU. And for most of us who were there were about 10 of us. It was the first time we had really spent time together, and it was a nice activity to get us focused on what it is we can do now and what we can do when we become GRU in January to help students be more successful, to help students progress through that curriculum and actually graduate. And we have developed a plan. That plan was sent to Atlanta. They gave us feedback and we resubmitted. But even at our first submission, I'm very proud of this because it was such a great team effort. They called and said, Carol, would you mind if we used your plan as one of the models for the state, because we think that GRU has done such a good job of putting this plan together. And we said that would be just fine with us, so that's what they've done. But it has a variety of activities that we're going to do. And certainly one of the things that we're interested in maintaining is access. And also in increasing this retention and graduation success. And that's a big part of what the Complete College Georgia plan is about. There are 8 different subgroups who are working on specific tactics to help us with this. And as I've said, as I was charging these groups, this is a case of there's not one activity that anybody's going to do that's going to make a huge difference, but everybody working together, making tiny differences in all those different areas can have a huge impact on it. So we're very excited about seeing what can happen. One of the things that's listed here that we're talking about that we've already begun doing is looking at policies and procedures that we have that maybe are counterproductive, things that act as barriers to success or that get in the way of students being successful, looking at better ways to mentor and advise. And I think I'm going to pause for a minute in our conversation just to talk a little bit to you, to let you think about this, because I think this is just really important. One of the best things that's happened because of consolidation and our working together in these efforts is there aren't very many times in life where you're given the opportunity or forced to take the opportunity to look at everything that you do. And that's really what we're doing now in this process of consolidation. We're looking at everything from the nuts and bolts of how you get email systems to work together, who's going to live in which space, how we can better do just about everything we're doing. And that's particularly important, I think, when we're looking at academics and academic supports. Trying to really look at things with fresh eyes and come up with something that may be different from the way either one of us has done it before, but that's better than either one of us has done it before. And it's been a really great opportunity for us to be required to take the time to do this sort of thing. And so that's where some of these ideas are coming from.
There are thousands of such opportunities, let me tell you. It's incredible how much.
And many of you are out there nodding your heads because you've been involved in just how much work that is. And one of the other things we wanted to be sensitive to as we're helping students be successful is the economic impact on their families in terms of paying for this good education that we provide. And so we're working on a modeling of the tuition that doesn't automatically move us from where we are to an R1 kind of institution, but that phases it in a gradual process and also holds harmless certain groups that if they come in a certain tuition, they're not automatically bumped up in significant amounts each year. So we're trying to be very sensitive to all the important things, but what we're doing always is looking at the data as we collect it and trying to make decisions based on what we know and what we think is the very best practices going forward. One of the other things I'm personally very excited about are some of the really good programs that we have currently at Augusta State University that are not on the access side so much as they are the what I'm calling enhancement side. Things that really do get at what Gretchen was talking about in terms of providing a really full, rich experience for students. And about 3 weekends, I think it was, ago, we had a program on our campus, the first one ever, where what I'm calling the three legs of the stool got together and did a program. And those are the honors program that we currently have on our campus, our CURS, our undergraduate student research and scholarship activities, and the study abroad opportunities. And the directors of those programs presented a snapshot of what they are, what they do, and there were student testimonials that were just really impressive, seeing what a difference and how to see these young people really grow and develop so many skills based on the opportunities they've had there. And certainly things like study abroad when we live in such a global economy is an important piece of what we want to provide students. So along in our planning that we're doing as we move forward, we are really looking at trying to enhance each one of these and make them even more central to our students' experiences than they currently are.
Again, it's all about opportunities to excel and making this the destination of choice for students. Let me go to this one and then I'll come back. One of the things that we mentioned briefly before was the academic program array, that is the number of degrees and certificate programs that we have each individually currently as two institutions, and then what we would look like on day one. And what this brings you again now is a little bit more granularity in the fact that this is what we look like currently, and as you note, although Georgia Health Sciences has more programs, they are naturally very focused in one specific area, that being health sciences and biomedical health sciences, whereas the broader array is at the ASU campus. Together then, what they will be, I went backwards instead. Together, if we think about that as Georgia Regents University day one, throughout, we will have, if you look at that rightmost column, a total number of programs of 111, and about 60% of those will be significantly health sciences related. If we compare that then in terms of what a typical, and of course there may be no typical, but still we can draw some comparisons certainly to our sister schools that we would want to aspire to have similar, at least, arrays of opportunity for students. You see Georgia Tech as our nearest neighbor with 180, and recall that Georgia Tech, as I mentioned, is heavily into the science, technology, engineering, math, not so much on the other platforms, although to some extent. Georgia State University, 271. Not sure we want to go as far as University of Georgia with a massive 474 programs. Pretty sure a lot of those aren't really active, but many of them certainly are. And you see down through Georgia Southern University, Valdosta State, and so forth in terms of where we will hit compared to those truly competitors and peers that we would like to compare ourselves to. So we come up short in terms of the number of opportunities, different things that our students can have.
I think we were a little bit surprised to see this data the first time and realize that we have an array that is a little bit too small, but I know the people at the book system office were very surprised to see this.
It was an aha moment for some of them.
So we were happy to share this with them, and I'll talk to them in just a minute about some of the new programs we're talking about that they are interested in supporting. So looking at the fact that, okay, here we are with this number of programs, and I want to say that that does not mean that we were not thinking and we were not doing what we needed to do, but our mission has changed. And so while Augusta State had an appropriate number of programs for Augusta State, and Georgia Health Sciences had an appropriate number of programs for Georgia Health Sciences, together we're asked to be more than either one of us currently is, and so we need to develop new programs that were not on our radar before to fit our new mission. So we looked at this and we came up with what we think is a plan to help move us there. Certainly increasing the number of bachelor's degrees is where we will start. We want to get to at least 50 within the next 5 years, which puts us in the neighborhood of some of our peers. Increasing graduate degrees by 30 and doctoral programs, which is probably our most ambitious goal, by 20 in the next 10 years. So these are the benchmarks we've set in terms of how we want to grow. I'm going to back up a little bit and go, this is forward on the slide, but backward in logic.
I'm backing up for her.
Okay. This slide, I think, is a little bit misplaced. It gets back a little bit more to the ideas of what are some of the things we're going to do to support not just these programs, but all our programs on campus. But we really do have a focus in Complete College Georgia on dealing with our military in a more appropriate fashion, maybe than we have, a more concerted effort than we have before. We understand that there are certain special needs that the military population has in terms of deployments, in terms of the complexities of the financial aid opportunities for them, and we have now just instituted on the ASU campus a Veterans and Military Service Center where we put together all of those support people in one place, so it's kind of a one-stop shopping for our military and military dependents, and we're hoping that that will have a big impact on helping them be more successful in their efforts at our university. We're interested in looking at some development of online where it is appropriate, particularly to work with our non-traditional students who may find it difficult to attend in college full-time, daytime, as we often think of the college experience as being. We want to, in order to do that, we obviously need to have robust training for our faculty for moving courses into the online environment, but we also want to continue to do other things with our faculty to keep them up to speed on the most innovative ways of teaching and helping them to understand the current students and how different their learning experiences are than maybe the experience of those who graduated from college 5, 10, or more years ago. So we want to always keep on the cutting edge, and you'll see noted here a couple of the things. EII, I know most of you in this audience know, and on our campus we have a Center for Teaching and Learning that works a lot with the undergraduate teaching and the pedagogies that address those kinds of students. So if you look at what we're projecting, our first take on this, these are the sample new programs that really we think we can bring to bear in a very short time. One is a PhD in education. This would be the first non-health sciences PhD program that we would offer as the new university. Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology, which is growing out of a minor program that we currently have at Augusta State in anthropology. Bachelor of Science in Ecology and Bachelor of Science in Cell and Molecular Biology are two programs now that serve kind of like tracks within the general biology degree, but we want to really elevate them to major status. And the next one is the Bachelor of Science in Applied Information Systems and Technologies. Again, this one, the need for this and the interest in this arose from our work with Fort Gordon and their desire to have this kind of program available for their clientele. All of these programs that we've mentioned so far are programs that we can really bring to bear with minimal additional resources because they're all building on strengths that we currently have in place. When we first started talking about developing new programs with the system office and the Regents, they were not very receptive to our need. I think the slide that we showed you earlier, when they saw that, and with the new executive chancellor and academic affairs talking, we met with them this last week in Athens at the board meeting, and we're very pleased with their understanding of the special nature of who we are and the need for us to be able to move forward in a much more direct and almost packaged thing where we can put together more than one program. Because if you've ever been involved in program development with them, you know it's like forever and a day, and they want to do one program and then maybe come back and look at another. And they're really now supportive of the idea of us moving forward on more than one front at once, which is very exciting to us. The other thing that Gretchen mentioned earlier, but this is, to me, one of the real blessings of consolidation, is these dual degree programs that we know there's an interest in a market for have been so complicated to figure out how to do because of the complications of being enrolled in more than one institution or having to stop out at one in order to enroll in another for financial aid and other reasons. And all of a sudden, all of those barriers just disappeared. So we're looking forward to having some of these very desirable dual degree programs up and running very shortly as well.
Just to return just a minute to the bachelor's degrees and that array, we are very happy that we were received positively in terms of trying to sort of bundle these, but understand that part of the strategy for us and that we want to especially emphasize to the Board of Regents is that we're doing this in a very intentional, very planful way. These are, I know it's a cliche, but these are truly low-hanging fruit at this point because they are majors that were significant assets already tucked into more generic degrees in some cases, or as a minor, as Carol mentioned. So we need to go in and demonstrate that we can be very strategic and very responsible, that we are not simply stirring up and, you know, spitting out new majors and programs without really any thought behind them. And so this would be our first step in that process, and only the first step. We do want others certainly to grow over time, as we just showed you.
So if we're successful in our plan in moving forward those degrees, what we're looking at is about a decade from now, moving from the 111 programs we currently have to something that looks more like 174, and positions us much better as a peer with our other research institutions in the state. Like Gretchen said, it's a very thoughtful, planned process. We obviously want to move as quickly as we can, but we need to make sure that they're well funded, that there's a great deal of interest in them, and that they make a difference to the workforce of our state also, that there's a job for these people or career opportunities for them in these fields. So as we have increased enrollment, we've talked about how we think that's going to happen, and part of the success of students also does keep our enrollment up. And we talk about these new program growths. They certainly have implications for growth of faculty. So we've put together a scenario of what we think it would take to help grow our faculty in a responsible way, dealing with the realities of the fiscal constraints we currently have. And what we're looking at is probably for about every 500 new students we have headcount, these are particularly undergraduate students because we know that's where we have room for a lot of growth, we'll take about 25 full-time equivalent faculty members. Okay? That is to do two things. It's one, to lower our student-faculty ratio to something that is more in line with what peer research institutions do as opposed to what we have at Augusta State currently. We have at Augusta State, and it's interesting, this is one of the things I've learned, when I say teaching from the Augusta State perspective and you say teaching from the GHSU perspective, we're not necessarily talking apples and apples, but the typical teacher at Augusta State University teaching undergraduate courses is responsible for an entire course, which means they write the syllabus, they order the textbooks, they design the course, they do all the teaching, the course delivery, they do all the grading, they do all the assessment, they do all the mentoring, they do all the follow-up, they do all the advising, they do all the hand-holding. And their teaching load tends to be 12 contact hours a semester, which by the time you add in all those other pieces ends up being a significant body of work in the course of each week. This model that we put forward allows us to reduce somewhat for some faculty that the number of courses that they teach, so that those faculty who currently are enrolled, who are very interested in spending more time on scholarship than they currently do, and for new faculty we will be recruiting in to do that more scholarly piece of it, there is room in this model for that to happen, because we cannot have everyone teaching 4-4 and expecting voluminous scholarship at the same time. So this is one of those things I think that, again, reminds me, it's not that what we have been doing at Augusta State has not been correct. It's just that with our new mission, it has to tweak and it has to change. And we think this kind of model will help us move toward that. And then, of course, as we have more programs, more students, more faculty, we need more space. We need space for classrooms, we need space for laboratories, we need faculty office space. And as we expand our footprint of the students we're drawing in, especially those undergraduate students, we need to be able to provide them the experiences on campus that make them want to come here and that make them want to stay here and that make them successful here. So we need places for them to live, we need places for them to eat, and we need places for them to recreate. And so all of that's part of the facilities planning that needs to go on as we grow the new university. And then, as I said, one of the things that is going to be very important for us is that as we look at the two sites that we currently have in place, working together on all of this planning so we can see ourselves moving together in some kind of sense of focus, and so that we, a few years from now, don't feel like an us and them, but feel like an us and us, that we're all in this together. And I think that's going to be really important to the success of Georgia Regents University.
One of the things, and we're going to head to some other economic challenges in just a minute, where you'll note the common word there is funds throughout. But I did want to return to something I failed to mention in the enrollment slide and the discussion around that, and Carol alluded to it just now. That enrollment that you see there can be solved a couple of different ways, can be achieved a couple of different ways, and we hope it'll be a combination. And that is, we can get new students here because they're attracted to the new vision and to what we can be, or they know what we were as institutions and want to be part of that. We can also retain the students we've got better, because if we can improve the retention rate and the graduation rate out, remember that conversation, then we will enhance the total rolling enrollment throughout. And so that's part of that Complete College Georgia plan, will be to enhance the retention, which then, as we both enter and enroll new freshmen, but we also retain the sophomores and retain the juniors and graduate the seniors, we'll all go up in enrollment in that fashion much better. If we think about the economic challenges, as I mentioned, money is key, obviously. Money then will buy resources, both human resources and facilities and all those other things that we will need. Some of the ways that we need to use those funds are here for new program growth, for faculty growth that has to accompany those new programs, facilities. Talked about all these. One we haven't talked a lot about, but which is really paramount, and that is to increase throughout our academic array and degrees the ability to fund scholarships for students and provide for a more adequate financial aid. That's becoming a huge national issue. The amount of debt that students, graduates typically emerge from college and post-baccalaureate training with, and that too will aid in the recruitment and retention, knowing that there are options that will help position those graduates not to be so financially strapped right out of the gate. Also, we will need funds for student support services, as we talked about, to engage the students and advise them in ways that we've not really been able to previously and that we feel are really key. And that's going to require increased enrollment, because again, that will drive through tuition and credit hour generation and all. We hope additional revenues, but also significant philanthropic support. So we have a great team that's been assembled and have had banner years so far, and hope that that will continue and specifically be not only on many of our capital campaign projects, but also specifically related to faculty and scholarships. And I know our team down there is going to do just that.
Now, is this not the most, and just in case you're about ready to fall asleep, this should wake everybody up. Is this not the most interesting slide you've ever seen?
There will be a test at the end. So I want to walk you through some data that we have not shown broadly before. It actually is data, though, that Dr. Aziz had begun asking our financial folks to gather as a look inside what our economic status has been, taking into account the past 4 years, as you know, which have not been kind economically from a state allocation perspective and whatnot, and how we, at that point, it was Georgia Health Sciences University, compared to the other system schools. So each of those bars, or in some cases you can't really see the bar because it's kind of like at zero, each of these across here represents one of the university system of Georgia institutions. And what you see here is an axis that, this is 50 million, I don't know how well you all can see. Each of these is a 10 million hash mark. 0 here, this is negative. This is the gain or loss from fiscal year 09 to 12 of what we are terming the combined total educational funding. And for us, we've defined that, as you see down here, as state appropriations, recognizing that not all the state appropriation is truly directly for education. There is some research built in, but it is the credit hour generation kind of formula. It's been used for decades. Tuition and the special institutional fee that was instituted by the Board of Regents. You'll recall that these were years in which we, all of us, continued to take significant cuts on the state appropriation budget, but we're also allowed, at the undergraduate rate, the institutions were allowed to raise tuitions to a significant extent, and also this special institutional fee was levied on all students each semester to varying degrees. So if you'll lump all that together and compare what the institutions had in this category in 09 versus what they had at the end of 12, this is what we see. This is Georgia Health Sciences University, this big arrow here that is descending down. Because we actually have lost revenue compared to our sister research universities, this being Georgia Tech, this Georgia State, this University of Georgia. Now recall that through this period, not only were tuitions going up, but enrollment was also being driven heavily. The system as a whole was still on the upswing. Carol mentioned that it actually declined, the total enrollment in the system, a bit this year, but it's the first time in several years that that has occurred. So there's a period of rapid growth for some institutions, and that was driving the tuition and whatnot. Recall that we have very little capacity to continue to grow, at least not at any kind of a rate that would actually offset the losses we've taken. It's expensive, as I know I'm preaching to the choir, it's expensive to train the kind of students we at Georgia Health Sciences train. Medicine is the most expensive, dentistry is expensive, and it cannot be borne on the tuition and the special institutional funding backs of the students. So this is why we find ourselves basically in this hole. If you look at the other red arrow here, that's Augusta State, who was barely staying even. It was, not as bad as we are, a couple of others, but not good. The interesting thing too, and you probably can't read them, but if you note these highlighted ones, these are the other consolidation pairs. They're all, so between the red and the blue highlights, you have all 8 of the institutions. And the really interesting thing, if you'll note here, is that 5 of those institutions, and you see them noted down here, are all at 0 or maybe even a little bit less than. So they were barely holding their own, or they were a little bit negative. The only one that was seeing some significant uptick, and not nearly as much as some others, was North Georgia College and State, and it, of course, now is consolidating with Gainesville State College. You do see some like Kennesaw State that was seeing enormous enrollment growth, and also the startup of Georgia Gwinnett. So this is the reality of where we are in terms of what the state funding and the tuition has been. And so we always have to be mindful of that. We will certainly advocate for all the state funding we can get, but we aren't going to be able to count on that in order to work our way out of this and achieve the goals that we have so much in mind. So some of the ways that we're going to get there. We've initiated a plan that Dr. Aziz will be speaking about at a later time and really explaining to you in more detail what we're terming the Georgia Regents University Strategic Development Fund. And it's not some magic bank that we've suddenly gotten, you know, the Swiss account number for. It's one that we are going to be investing ourselves. We are going to be redirecting. We're going to gain efficiencies in certain ways. And we all know we don't think there's any more to be had, but we believe that really is true. We can continue to try to do that. We are going to grow student enrollment, and that will help drive tuition. We are going to have a plan of increasing tuition over time to become commensurate with the Research One universities, with Georgia State, for instance. But that'll take place over a period of years, and as Carol mentioned, hold harmless the cohorts that enter at a certain time, because we do not want to disadvantage students who are already enrolled at Augusta State, nor do we want to disincentivize students who are coming to us because they're interested and they think it's going to be a great place to be, but you know, in the meantime, we've still got some growing pains. So we need to take all of that into consideration. We do want to, as I mentioned, attract quality students from that broader statewide footprint and beyond. Again, haven't talked at all really about the health system, and David Hefner would be very disappointed in me if he knew that. But the fact is, we have to tend to the health system and its health. We want a very vibrant and successful health system. There is a reason that medical schools are sucking sounds for universities, really, if they stand alone. You've heard Dr. Aziz's remarks about that as we did those data. But the academic health center, that's the potential golden egg, so to speak. But it doesn't happen without a lot of hard work, a lot of people tending to that day in and day out too, so that it can also reflect well and actually help us as the university and its general health. Spoke about enhanced philanthropic support already. Greater targeted federal investment. We've actually not captured some of the federal dollars that can flow to institutions, neither Augusta State nor Georgia Health Sciences has in the past. We intend to try to remedy that, pay more attention to that. I'm not talking about research grants or training grants. We've actually done well in those areas, though we want to do more, but other types of funding that would help us in some of these big capital projects, for instance, and other ways that we could leverage the federal government's funding better. So with that in mind, and I mentioned also the formula funding and the fact that while we'll advocate for more, we actually don't know what the formula funding will be in the coming years. There was a Blue Ribbon Commission or committee established by the governor over a year ago, and that report of their findings has yet, and their recommendations has yet to come out. We believe it will at least have some measure of performance-based formula funding in it, meaning they will expect performance improvements on things like graduation rate or retention and some other sorts of metrics, and so we're going to pay careful attention to the way that that happens. So to wrap this up, and we appreciate your indulgence, we believe in thinking about the legacy that we would hope to have in a decade or so. In 2022, we will be a comprehensive research university with an integrated academic health center. We will be recognized as Georgia's Public Health Academic Center and a national leader in health professions education. We'll be known for delivering advanced and graduate education in a hub and spoke model in a statewide footprint. This was the aspiration we had set at Georgia Health Sciences for our health professions programs already, and we are committed to that goal. And we will be a destination for students seeking careers in healthcare, biomedical science professions, and STEM disciplines, but that's not all. Remember, that's the spike, that's the sweet spot early on, but we will be more as well. We'll do that by expanding our degree and certificate offerings across a wide spectrum of disciplines according to that plan that you saw us outline. We want a student body of more than, we'll say, 12,000, and have a main campus in Augusta, because recall, we are already throughout the state in terms of our campus and our footprint in a statewide fashion. But our Augusta main campus will provide a student-centered living, learning, residential experience, because we do believe it is about the students.
So we thank you for letting us share with you some of our vision of what we see happening in the student enrollment and program development areas. I'm very excited about the direction that we're taking. I think it's thoughtful, I think it's doable, and look forward to working with every one of you and making it happen over the next little bit of time.
Because we all love this day. That's what we want to see. Thank you all very much. We have like this much time, but we are happy to entertain questions if folks have them. or if not, you know where to find us.
We actually have one from online if you have time.
Okay, sure.
One of our online viewers actually has a question about the master's program in psychology at ASU. She wants to know if there's any chance it could become a PhD program.
That is one of the programs that we're currently looking at. It's not going to happen overnight, but it is one that is on the table and being discussed currently.
Because again, we do see that as one of those synergies, leveraging what's already there in terms of the master's program with our Department of Psychiatry, for instance, where there are already fellows in clinical psychology. So I think that's a great potential opportunity. Yes.
Yeah, whoa, way too close. Yeah, I was looking up there and I saw a lot of ones of, in 2022, of how we're going to have, be the destination for medical and everything else like that. First off, I don't know what STEM is, but also this is sort of going to be a hybrid university, correct? Because we have liberal arts and a medical university, and it's supposed to be a merged together university. How come we can't have anything of, I don't see any examples of what ASU is going to be well known for. Why can't we also be a destination for medical and history?
I think you're absolutely right. What I had mentioned, and first of all, just to say again, because I think you missed it when I did define STEM, it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's just
Okay, yeah, I missed that, I'm sorry.
And again, just to kind of show that side of the intellectual array, we do think it is the most thoughtful and planful to first leverage the strengths that we have in those areas. So that is why we emphasize that. However, we also do plan to grow to the extent that we are able through enrollment and the other things, the other disciplines. And so what you saw even in that first handful, which are going forward, is a PhD in education, is a Bachelor of Science in Anthropology, is what is essentially, it is somewhat STEM, but it is in the College of Business. So what you saw represented in that first cut of the degrees that we would be putting forward for consideration to the board is actually something that is in each of the ASU colleges currently. And we do intend to grow those out.
Well, it's good that you're going to grow them out, everything, but you're saying that we're going to be the destination for medical, and I would think we should be the destination for, because you mentioned, though, Georgia Tech has other things other than engineering, but who goes to Georgia Tech for, those are very, very small compared to, it's the engineering school. I know my father went there, so it's the engineering school. I think that the way at least you're wording it is that this is going to be the medical school. Well, I don't want the programs that I went through, that everything else to be, oh, they're the secondary stuff that's here on the side. I think we should have equal opportunity of, yes, this is the medical school, but this is also the something else school that shows the hybrid school that we are going to be.
I appreciate your input and I understand it and I agree with you, but we are going to come down to what we can do first. And we can't be all things to all people. And we are going to have to take the strengths that we have, which I think are demonstrated in some of those early programs that we're going to put up from the ASU, and we're going to grow more. But we are not going to ignore the fact that we are the state's only dental school, that we are the public medical school for the state of Georgia. That is the reality that we want to leverage, and we want to grow it in a way that we actually can then have the wherewithal to grow other programs, to become the destination for other disciplines as well.
But you're absolutely right. That's part of the reason that we're looking at the breadth of programs. And when we showed that slide with 111 and our move to 170, many of those programs will not be in the health sciences. They will be in those good, strong liberal arts areas that we already have the foundation for on the ASU campus. Absolutely.
Okay. I have one more question unless someone else wants to go. Oh, okay. You want to, here, I can bring, or are we allowed to bring it up, or? I don't know.
I think that we don't use medical, and that would not be inclusive of a number of things that we do actually. GHSU, we use health sciences, and I think that was mentioned here. But what I would like to suggest, and I'm not sure if I don't say it wrong, but it would be helpful to have perhaps talking points for our faculty colleagues, for our staff members, for our students, to highlight those great values that the two institutions bring to this equation. There are a lot of things that we do not have at GHSU, but ASU has it.
Absolutely.
And I believe there are a lot of things that ESU does not have, and GHSU has it. And obviously, the graduate college would be one example, and what can be better example than the JAX on the ESU side. So I believe that they bring a lot of values, and certainly I would be interested in seeing those highlighted and to show the excitement of the community.
Yeah, we are
Appreciate
all our best salespeople and recruiters. Never forget that. So I agree with you. We all need to have our elevator talk and have it down cold. We need those kinds of talking points and to be ready to sing those praises whenever we can, because there's much there.
And I do think we're blessed in the fact that we do have complementary but different programs. And I really do believe if we do this right, that what we are will be much greater than the sum of those two pieces coming together. So appreciate your comments on that.
Oh, the second question I had is when you were talking about expanding the facilities and everything, which means building and everything like that. Currently, at least when I was at Augusta State, before every single construction that we would do on the property, we'd have an archaeological survey, because of course at the Augusta State campus there's a lot of historical buildings and everything, and I've done them personally. I was wondering, would that carry over to GHSU, because you have an opportunity there. I don't know anything about the history of the campus or anything like that. I'll admit my ignorance, but you have an opportunity with those facilities and those people who are already trained in doing that on the campus to expand it here to GHSU, so that the new university does have a preservationist attitude about everything. And I was wondering, is that going to carry over? I hope it's going to continue on the ASU campus. In fact, I'm going to kind of push for that. But especially with the unit trying to get the anthropology bachelor's, that would be an even bigger resource that you already have there. And I just wanted to know, is that going to expand to the GHSU? What's going on with that? Because if you are going to be building, that would be a wonderful thing to have, especially for PR.
I think you're absolutely right. We have not specifically talked about that. I was aware of the need definitely to do that on the ASU campus, and certainly think an extension of that to all our building projects would be a wonderful asset.